Hey everyone, Leanne Pilkington here, and as usual, I have our CEO Tim McGibbon, and today we are lucky enough to have Mark Bernaziak. Tim's taking the questions so I don't get to ask them, and I got your name right too, didn't I, Mark? Well done.
You did, you nailed it.
Thank you. Mark is with the Fishers, Shooters and Farmers Party, so we're really interested to have a bit more of a conversation around not just the party, but about some of the things that are happening in Parliament right now. But I have to tell you that Tim told me yesterday that you are his favourite politician of all time. That is a very big call, and I'm not sure whose nose he's going to put out of joint over that. But that being the case, I'm going to hand over to Tim to ask you the questions today, which is not something I do very often.
But was I secret about that or did I told the world?
I think you told the world.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was in a sort of an environment like this. So, but listen, folks, before we get started, because this is Friday, you got to check out Leanne's jacket. Look at that.
Very sparkly, and it's really sparkly under that too. Sorry, Mark. It's just it's a thing we do.
I took it. I took it right up to her earlier this week because I had a jacket sparkly and I could turn a switch on and all the lights came on. So I felt a bit threatened. Anyway, Mark, we better put on our serious hat because right now we're looking very much towards our politicians for guidance through these tough times. So that kind of leads me to my first question. I mean, why the hell would you want to be a politician? It's a thankless job. People are either leaving you alone or criticising you. You don't kind of get that people ringing you up and saying, thank you very much, I loved what you said or did. I mean, what drove you to take on what is a very, very difficult and thankless job?
Well, I was already in a thankless job being a high school teacher. The same thing. No one really thanks you for that either. But I guess I got frustrated by, like many people, by the bumblings and failings of the major two parties and a lack of understanding from them about what real life was like for the average punter. And that's what we are. We're a party of average punters that just want a fair go. And I think that resonates out in the community, and that's largely what I want to do is put that, the views across of the average bloke, an average man and woman out there. And there's that saying that you can criticise from the sidelines, but if you want real change, you got to get in there and have a go, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, no, that's admirable, unquestionable, as you say. And Leanne and I know that only too well. There's rocks being tossed at us constantly from the sideline, and when we say to somebody that's doing that, there's plenty of room around the board table. Come and sit in, and we're happy to have your contribution. Then they go away. The next question I have for you, and this is my first pandemic, so I'm a little bit lost in here how we deal with it. But this is a health-driven recession, not a financial recession. So it's rather an odd one, isn't it? That I'm a little bit curious to know how we dig ourselves out of this one. It was easy enough to shut the economy down. They just said, turn off the lights in the office and go home. But what sort of things do you think as far as firing the economy back up? How do we get it going again as we're now fortunately coming out of lockdown as opposed to our dear friends down in Victoria? How do we get ourselves going again? How do you see that?
Well, I think it's with any recession, it's a confidence thing. You in some ways you can talk yourself into a recession with all the negative talk, and I think you need to talk yourself up and talk yourself out of that recession. And it's about confidence. So the consumer and the average person needs to feel confident about going back out to the workforce, going out to the restaurant, going out to the movies. They need that confidence, and that comes from, I guess, clear leadership in the health space, in terms of what's been put in place to manage the risks that we now face. So it's about what the government does to instill that confidence. And I think we've seen a lack of leadership in Victoria in that space. It's probably been a little bit better handled in New South Wales, but I think the government really needs to send a clear message. It's safe to come out. It's safe to go back to work. It's safe to start spending money in businesses again. Because if you have that confidence, you have money flowing through the economy. We'll naturally move out of this recession. But you need people back out there spending money, because it's not that they don't have it. It's just that they haven't had the opportunity, in a greater sense, to go out there and do that because they've been in lockdown. So it's about what accommodations and adjustments can businesses make so they can still operate. And I said from the very beginning, the more businesses that can, I guess, modify their practice during this pandemic to stay open to a certain degree, the better we'll be in terms of coming out of it. So you've seen a lot of restaurants just diverted to takeaway and delivery of meals, and that was a way of them surviving. I think we need to look at, more broadly speaking, how can businesses operate in this sort of post-pandemic, or even we're still through it, this pandemic crisis, because I don't think this is going to be the last one that we have.
No.
They were talking about the mutation of the swine flu, the H1N1 virus the other day. So I think we're going to sadly be in this, I guess, constant state of alert for a while. So I think we need to look at how government can support businesses to make those accommodations and adjustments and still get people out there spending their money.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And in fact, Leanne and I are going to put ourselves out this very day, aren't we? Because we're going for lunch.
We are.
And it's the first restaurant I've been in about 3 months. So the restaurant should hang on to its hat, I think. Mark,
Shame you're not in Sydney, Mark.
It is.
One inhibitor that we often hear, and there's no doubt this is right, is stamp duty is a barrier, an inhibitor for particularly first home buyers getting into the market. And I think that any tax that is actually becomes a decision, becomes a consideration when you're making any purchase, is a very, very bad tax. Now, we all know, reluctantly, but we all know that government has to raise taxes for the schools and roads and all of that. We all accept that. But it's how they raise the taxes that is so important. And I'm reminded here of the famous quote of Winston Churchill when he said that a country will never tax itself into prosperity. So you've got this necessity to actually raise tax, but also not to raise it in such a way where people, as I said, don't spend and don't transact in the economy. So where do you see that going in the current discussion? Because again, one of the great sayings is never waste a crisis. So I think that the government has an opportunity now to have a look at our tax system. Where do you think we should head in that direction?
But I think you're bang on with the Winston Churchill quote. So I think it's about balance. So we can't just be removing one tax and slapping another one. And all taxes hit the average consumer's hip pocket, and that all impacts their ability to save for a deposit, repay their loans, or even contemplate purchasing a house. So I know the Treasurer is talking about maybe dropping stamp duty and going for a broader based land tax and maybe tinkering with GST, but I think we need to make sure we get the balance right, and that we're not necessarily impacting. Obviously taxes are needed to fund projects and stuff like that, but we want to make sure that we're not hitting the consumer's hip pocket too hard to the point where they can't purchase a home. I think 4% of Australians own their own home at the moment, and 33% roughly rent, and then there's a variety of other arrangements. And I think we need to, I guess, probably delve a little bit deeper as well and say, you know, are we happy with that breakdown of home ownership and renting? Is the Aussie dream of home ownership still a thing that we want, or are we moving to a more, you know, mixed bag? And I think you need to, you know, take those things into consideration in terms of any tax around home ownership. What are we trying to achieve with that tax, and how is what we're planning to do going to achieve that? I think, you know, you need to consult with the people when you're talking about tax reform, and you need to be able to really sell it. And, you know, if you can't show a roadmap in terms of how that tax reform is going to lead to better outcomes for them, they're going to be reluctant to go on the journey with you as a government. And that's what you really need to do. You need to be able to sell the message and take people and make people believe in that you're heading in the right direction. And if you can't do that, you're not going to get buy-in from the community.
Yeah. Look, I think that's right. I think that we need to be looking, as you've said, at a broad-based tax. Now, one other, you can see where I spend my time reading really stupid things about or relevant things about tax and a variety of other things. Leanne always laughs at me when I tell her that something happened in the budget estimates and I've read the Hansards, and she tells me I really should go and get a life. But I do read the Hansards. I find them interesting. But
anything you need to share it with me, because I might find it interesting as well.
It's great to have Mark here, because I'm sure he likes the Hansards because he gets quoted in them. But just a little bit of trivia, today is Friday, and Tim's fun fact, Friday fun fact. In the broad-based tax system is not something new to the last few years. Did you know that there's a gentleman that was the treasurer in the Louis XVI court in France, so the king, and this particular guy's name was Baptiste, and he said that the art of taxation was to pluck as many feathers as you could from the goose with the minimum amount of squawking. So that if you is a broad-based tax.
A fairly apt description there, I think.
So before we came on today, Mark, I thought it was appropriate that I do a little bit of research on the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party, and I noticed that in the last few years you've obviously expanded your base into the farming area, and are eating away quite solidly at the National Party. Used to be the Country Party. I'm old enough to remember that, but you're eating away into their base. When the party at least first got into politics, and you had some, I think it was one upper house seat, if my memory goes, if my research is right, and then you've grown, and in the last state election, you're able to maintain 2 seats in the upper house and achieve 3 seats in the lower house. So clearly there's an expansion of the party's support out there in the community. And this weekend you're contesting a seat down in Monaro. Was it Eden Monaro area down there in the by-election? So the party is certainly on the march, and so I'm a little bit curious to know where you're headed as a party.
Yeah, well, you are right. We are on the march, and I think we're on the march largely because of the voters. The voters dissatisfied with the major twos, and they're also dissatisfied with the National Party out in the bush. A lot of the people out in the bush have felt neglected. There's a strong sentiment there that the Nationals have, I guess, forgotten their roots and are more concerned about maintaining their ministerial cars and positions of power rather than speaking up and representing the people that put them there in the first place. And I think they see us as a party that not only talks the talk, but actually will get out and put that talk into action. So yeah, we'll talk about support for drought funding, or or support for regional businesses, and then we'll actually go about drafting legislation and trying to bring in bills that will achieve that. So I think that's resonating with people, that we're not just the typical poly that will just spray it off the lines, but we'll actually back it up with action, and that's I think that's what the people want. I think people are getting tired of the silly games that politicians play, and they just want action. They just want to see improvement in their life, whatever that looks like. So I think we as a party, that's what we bring. We're a bit of a refreshing change to what's been the norm for too long, and people are either disengaging from the politics because they're tired of it, or they're engaging because they want change. So it's I think that's why we're on the march. And it can only be a good thing for the people of New South Wales if there's more parties that are willing to step up and represent and speak for them. So I think it's
it's good to have more choice.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah,
exactly.
So Mark, you mentioned two things in response to that question. One was drafting legislation and standing up. So Leanne mentioned at the beginning of this that I hold you as my favourite politician. So let's get into that. You've brought a bill into the upper house, which if it can manoeuvre its way through the parliamentary process, will move the property services industry out from under fair trading, and will establish our own dedicated commissioner for the property services industry. Now that actually takes us back to where we came from back in the 90s. But what drove you to I guess to bring that on and to get that into Parliament for a proper debate?
Probably a few things. Obviously, hearing the feedback from the industry about their concerns about the management and regulation of their industry, and how it's, I guess, took a turn for the worst under fair trading. And I guess, and also considering the fact that you've got the real estate industry. It's a $107 billion industry. It's bigger than mining, retail, and tourism combined. And everyone thinks as fair trading as being responsible for high frequency, low cost purchases, not low frequency, high value purchases. And purchasing of your first home or second home or an investment, it's the largest purchase that anyone will ever make. And it needs to be managed right. And we've heard many stories of where it hasn't been managed well. And when it comes to fair trading's, I guess, role in that, they haven't been supportive of the industry improving and growing. In fact, they've probably been a hindrance. You've seen the standards of entry level requirements drop for a real estate profession, and when that happens in any industry, it's not a good thing. I saw it. You see it in the teaching profession where I came from, where they drop entry level requirements because they think, we want to get more people into that industry, but you want to get the right people into the industry. You just don't want to flood it with people that are going to end up doing that industry a disservice. And so it's about, I guess, removing it from fair trading because they haven't managed it well. Industry have been pushing for improvements and almost having to bring fair trading kicking and screaming along for the ride, which it's opposite. It's generally opposite of what should occur. It's normally the regulator that brings the industry along, not the other way around. So I think that's I guess the reason why we're bringing forward this bill. because the industry wants to improve, it wants to grow, it wants to maintain a professional standard, and it's not getting that under fair trading. And you've also got the Property Service Commissioner, which will be part of that bill if passed, and that's about instilling confidence and giving a better dispute mechanism, or putting a better dispute mechanism in place for those people that have concerns or complaints about a real estate transaction. You see that they've got one down in Tasmania, they've got one down in New Zealand that works. So why wouldn't it work in the powerhouse of Australia's real estate industry, which is New South Wales? People, if they have a complaint about real estate, want to be able to go and have it judged by someone that's the best in their field, and that's what we expect the Property Service Commissioner to be, someone that's a leader in the real estate industry and knows it back to front. And that's what people expect as a consumer. They want to feel secure when making such a large purchase, and that's what that Property Service Commissioner will do, because they'll have a clear mechanism to go to if they feel dissatisfied.
Do you know, Mark, this happens about every 18 months to me. I have absolutely nothing to say because I think you've absolutely nailed it.
Oh my God, I'm so glad we're recording this, Mark, because he says it happens every 18 months, but I've known him for 15 years and I've never seen it happen.
No,
So.
I got nothing to add. You absolutely nailed it. So,
Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, the next big question is, how do we help you with that process? Because I'm going to be at the front of the line. I might have to fight you for that, but I'll be at the front of the line to help out. So what can we do, mate? Because this is the biggest issue. This is we've been dealing with symptoms of the problem over the last 15 years since we were moved into fair trading, just symptomatic. But we want to deal with the issue, and I certainly believe what you're trying to do will achieve that. So, how do we help?
Well, I guess we need to be able to get it past the upper house first. So the government doesn't have a majority in that space. Generally with Labor and us and One Nation and the Greens, we can pass things quite easily. So it's about talking to those parties in the upper house and making the case, and saying that as an industry you support this legislation, because if the industry supports it, then that would certainly ease the minds of politicians to know that they're not going to upset a huge industry. And then obviously it becomes a little bit more difficult when we get down into the lower house, because the government has the majority there, and they can essentially ditch any bill that comes down from our place, or amend it as they see fit. But once again, it's about talking to your local member in that space and reiterating the same thing and saying that you support it, writing specifically to the minister responsible, Minister Kevin Anderson, and saying that you support it. He's made some leaps and bounds in terms of trying to improve the building industry with the building commissioner. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be moving in this space for one of the largest industries in Australia. So making that case to him, and because ultimately he's the one that's going to come to me and want to negotiate, or I'll go to him and negotiate, and we'll try and come to an arrangement where they'll support it. But it's largely the thing that you can do is pressure the other parties to support it now, and getting your friends and family to do the same thing, and putting it out there. Real estate is probably one of the hot topics around a dinner table. And now that we can actually get out into people's houses again and have those discussions, it's probably good timing to maybe bring up my bill as a positive change for the industry, and a change that's wanted by the industry, and just encourage people to contact their local member or the parties in the upper house, because sadly, that's what politicians respond to, is what's going to win them votes for the next election. That's what, largely they're driven by. So if they know that, it'll be seen as a positive for them if they support it, they'll be more likely to jump on board. So I think that's probably the biggest thing you guys can do. Obviously, you talk to your real estate contacts within your network and get them on board and get them singing the praises of this proposed reform. And we were just a collective push from everyone. Towards.
Well, there's plenty of we know there's plenty of agents out there, but more importantly, there's plenty of people trying to buy homes, and also landlords and tenants. Everybody's looking. Everybody has an interest in property. Again, another saying. People have a connection with property from the cradle to the grave. So and I think that carries on. And you're 100% right when you talk about dinner parties in Sydney in particular. People are addicted to property. You cannot have a dinner party without talking. You can't catch a cab. I don't tell people that I work at the Real Estate Institute when I get a cab. I just don't. I get my YouTube. So everybody in this city in particular just loves to talk about property.
I get followed around the local supermarket near home, where everybody knows what I do. It's just
Well, Gladys conveniently, our Premier, is my local member, so I'll and I know where her electoral office is, so I'll go there and knock on her door. Mark, COVID has put a halt to so many things. And I think the government's focus and Parliament's focus, rightly so, both in the upper and lower house, moved into the COVID area to address that problem. So now that we are starting to get that under control, with thank God, and moving into back to whatever the new normal is going to be, where does the bill go now? Where do you see it progressing?
Well, I think it goes directly to the heart of what we originally were talking about in terms of how do we come out of this mess, and that's about confidence. So the bill's been second read, so it's ready to essentially, pardon a party pun, but pull the trigger and bring it on for debate. So we can bring that on whenever we see fit, and we plan to do so. But obviously, we want to give a time for the industry to lobby and petition the government to support it. But I think it complements where we need to go in terms of trying to get out of this recession. Consumers want confidence. Renters and landlords want confidence. And the best way to instill that confidence is this bill and have the real estate industry managed properly. And have consumers have a clear pathway to settle grievances or disputes or complaints, and know that it will be handled in a professional way by people that are actually experienced in the industry and know it back to front. So I think this bill actually complements where the government needs to go in terms of instilling confidence in a more general sense and getting people out there spending money and recontributing back to the economy. So I plan to bring it on as soon as possible. But obviously we'll be guided by how the industry is feeling in terms of the response they're getting from the other politicians. But I think it's going to complement where the government needs to go.
Okay, it's fantastic.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually.
Yeah, so will you forgive me if I read the Hansards again when Mark brings it on? All right, that's
all
really right, because I will do. Now, mate, it sounds like
don't make him read my second read speech. It was 27 pages. You'll
Okay, stay away from that one.
Oh, no, I'm sure it's a good read. Mark,
I'm sure it was a good read.
Mark, I can hear in the background there that there sounds like there's hammer and nails and all kinds of activity. So I think we better let you go and do your bit. back there and do the building.
No.
By the way,
don't trust me with the hammer.
By the way, you appear to be in a very, very nice home there. So.
Yeah, look, I'm just down in Eden for the federal by-elections. So we're down here for a few days, and then heading out to Waldron and Lightning Ridge to do a bit of stuff with Roy Butler, our lower house member, out there. So it's actually good to be back out on the road and meeting people and being able to have a cheeky beer at the pub, which we all love. So.
Absolutely. It's been so good to catch up with you today. Thank you so much for giving us the time. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you for all of the work that you're doing to improve the industry that Tim and I and everybody watching absolutely love. So thanks, and good luck on the weekend.
No problems at all, Leanne.
We'll look forward to. Yeah, thanks, Mark. We'll look forward to talking to you again, and stay safe while you're on the road, mate.
No worries. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.